That morning, an unusual crowd had gathered in front of the Supreme Court building. Reporters, law students, even some celebrities, everyone was filled with curiosity. Why? Because today, Will Smith was stepping into a rare and unprecedented trial in American legal history, alone. Under Washington's gray sky, walking between the massive columns of the building, he had no security surrounding him. He wore a simple dark navy suit, carrying no briefcase, but there was a deep determination in his eyes. The crowd gradually fell silent, as if everyone was wondering what would happen with each step he took. Cameras clicked quietly. Video cameras rolled. But Will did not stop. As he stepped inside, the solemnity of the Supreme Court chamber descended upon him. This was not his usual stage. There was no script this time. No applause. The lights shone down directly from above, focused only on him, and across from him was Chief Justice John Roberts. Roberts removed his glasses and glanced at the case file, then fixed his gaze on Will. It was a cold, distant look, yet it carried a challenge. Chief Justice Roberts, in a stern tone, "Mr. Smith, you are here to defend yourself, yet you have no attorney with you. Is this a performance or a serious legal defense?" Will Smith slowly lifted his head. His voice was clear, confident, but calm. "Will, Your Honor, the only reason I'm here is to defend the fundamental rights of this country. I don't have a lawyer because I need to speak for myself, because this isn't just my issue." A murmur rose in the room. A few legal reporters quickly jotted down notes. Some judges furrowed their brows slightly. Roberts squinted. His expression seemed to say he didn't believe Will would last long in that seat. Chief Justice Roberts, mockingly, "Freedom of speech, huh? Have actors now become constitutional experts?" Will, without blinking, "No, sir, but for years I've been telling millions what freedom means. Now it's time to truly defend it." Roberts leaned back slightly. He hadn't expected that answer, yet he didn't soften his tone. "Chief Justice Roberts, all right, Mr. Smith, the stage is yours. But remember, this is a courtroom. And here, not the stage lights, but the Constitution shines." Will Smith said nothing, but his eyes said it all. "That's exactly why I'm here." The trial was about to begin. America was perhaps for the first time about to know an actor not just by his roles, but by his intellect.
The hearing had begun. Will Smith stood alone at the center podium. His eyes were fixed on the judges, but everyone in that courtroom could feel it. Chief Justice John Roberts wasn't just there to oversee this case. He was there to break Will down, piece by piece. Roberts closed the file, then slowly removed his glasses, leaning slightly toward Will. "Chief Justice Roberts, cold and dominant. Mr. Smith, you may be compelling on screen, but this isn't a stage. And remember, one wrong word here and you don't just walk out of this courtroom, you fall from the public's grace too." The air in the room turned cold. A small twitch crossed Will's face. But Roberts wasn't done. "Chief Justice Roberts, sharply, this isn't a case about free speech. This is about you stepping where you don't belong. You're challenging the wisdom of the system itself. You're attacking something far bigger than you can comprehend, Mr. Smith. This wasn't just legal pressure, it was a psychological strike, aimed at Will's confidence, his courage, his identity." Will paused. Some in the crowd looked away. Law students shook their heads in disappointment. That silence screamed, maybe he's not ready for this. But Will didn't lower his head. He stepped forward instead, and looking the Chief Justice straight in the eye, he spoke. "Will, calm and firm. Your Honor, the system may be big, but if no one dares to question it, it will eventually collapse under its own weight. I'm not standing here as an actor, I'm standing here as a citizen, and believe me, I've seen scarier crowds trying to shake me before, on much louder sets." A low murmur spread through the room. Roberts' jaw tightened. That answer hit back, hard. Chief Justice Roberts, clenching his lips, "Let's see if your courage matches your knowledge of the law, Mr. Smith. Continue. But know this courtroom will not become a stage. I won't allow it." And in that moment, the crowd saw it clearly. Justice Roberts was trying to intimidate Will Smith, but Will didn't flinch. His eyes held no fear, only fire. And that fire was about to take this story somewhere no one expected. Will Smith began his testimony. But this wasn't a typical statement. He was prepared, methodical, as if he had already anticipated every move Justice Roberts might make. Will, with steady conviction, "Your Honor, this isn't a personal outburst. I'm not here speaking just for myself. This is about free speech, about misunderstood public figures, and about government pressure on ordinary citizens." As he spoke, Will placed several documents on the podium. These weren't just papers. They were internal email chains, never seen in the media, showing that the U.S. Office of Public Affairs had directly intervened in select media content. Justice Roberts narrowed his eyes. He leaned forward to scan the documents. The room went quiet. Then, with a sarcastic smirk, Roberts spoke. "Chief Justice Roberts, these files, they're not public record. What's your source, Mr. Smith? Did you find them on a movie set or did your screenwriter hand them over?" A few chuckles rippled through the gallery, but Will didn't flinch. In fact, he looked like he had expected this attack. "Will, my sources are as constitutionally protected as my right to speak here, but if you'd prefer, we can debate the validity of these documents not in this courtroom, but in the federal transparency lawsuit we'll be filing next." Roberts paused. It was clear now, Will wasn't just emotionally driven. He was legally prepared too. But Roberts made one final move. He leaned into the microphone, letting his voice echo through the chamber. "Chief Justice Roberts," firm and threatening. "Mr. Smith, if it's discovered that these documents were obtained illegally, you won't just lose this case, you'll lose your career. Do you still want to proceed?" This wasn't just legal pressure, it was intimidation, a threat, a push to break his resolve. Everyone in the room held their breath, but Will smiled. "Will, Your Honor, my career was never about red carpets. It's always been about walking toward the truth, and I don't intend to stop today." The words echoed through the courtroom. For the first time, Will wasn't just standing his ground. He was taking control. Justice Roberts quietly closed his folder. And as this round ended, one thought lingered in everyone's mind. This is no longer just a trial. It's a reckoning. The silence inside the courtroom had shifted. Chief Justice Roberts sat at the bench, case files in hand, but his eyes were fixed on Will Smith because this wasn't just a standard testimony. Why was Will even there? The answer went back 3 months earlier. At the time, Will had spoken at a closed seminar for young entrepreneurs, and one particular sentence he said left that room and spread like wildfire. Will at the seminar. "Young minds deserve to be free, but now ideas are regulated before they're even born. It's not just what you say, it's who's allowed to speak and for how long, and that's decided by the system." Those words hit the media, but not as he said them, twisted and taken out of context. The next day's headlines screamed, "Will Smith challenges the government. He accuses authorities of controlling information." And within weeks, Will was facing a federal case, charged with inciting distrust in public institutions, spreading misinformation, and damaging state credibility. But Will wasn't surprised. In fact, he had expected this. Right after that speech, a former government employee had reached out to him anonymously with a message. "They'll come for you because what you said, it's too true and too dangerous." From that moment on, Will made up his mind. He wouldn't back down, he would keep speaking up. And now, sitting across from him wasn't just a judge. Chief Justice Roberts didn't just speak from the bench. He echoed the voice of the system itself. Roberts reviewed the file one last time, then looked directly at Will. Chief Justice Roberts, sternly. "Mr. Smith, you may look like an actor, but this isn't a movie. In this courtroom, drama doesn't matter, facts do. The charges you're facing are serious, and I need you to understand the weight of this moment." A ripple moved through the gallery. The press zeroed in on Will, but Will didn't flinch. He didn't lower his gaze. And when he spoke, his voice was calm but resolute. "Oh, I understand, Your Honor. Because this isn't just my case. It's the case of everyone who's ever tried to speak up." Roberts leaned forward slightly, as if he had been waiting for that answer. Chief Justice Roberts cutting in. "So you're claiming to speak for the people now? Let me remind you, you're here because of reckless public statements. You gave a speech that tried to divide this country." Will squinted slightly, took a deep breath. The room fell silent. Then he spoke slowly. "I never tried to divide. I simply pointed to what's already broken. Trust. When people no longer trust their leaders, to stay silent would have been the real crime." Those words changed the air in the room. People began to see Will wasn't just defending himself. He was standing up for something larger. His lawyer Lena glanced at her notes but said nothing. Will's own words carried more weight. Justice Roberts, however, looked uneasy. To him, Will was turning the courtroom into theater. But the truth was, Roberts never expected him to be this prepared or this unshaken. He had planned to intimidate him, to box him in, then deliver a sentence and move on. But Will Smith hadn't brought any of his Hollywood into this courtroom. He came only as a man, unafraid, unwilling to retreat. And now, there was only one sound echoing through those walls, the voice of truth. The tension inside the courtroom was rising by the minute. Every word Will Smith spoke wasn't just echoing through those marble walls, it was resonating in the hearts of millions watching from outside. Chief Justice Roberts couldn't take his sharp gaze off Will, but he was no longer in control the way he had expected. Will stepped forward again, this time with quiet support from his attorney, Lena. He approached the microphone, his voice steady and full of emotion. Will, firm and impassioned. Your Honor, I'm not here just for myself. I'm here for free speech, for justice, and for the voice of the people. Systems fail. People make mistakes, but you don't fix those failures with fear or silence. In the crowd, journalists pulled out their phones, scribbling notes, recording every word. But Will wasn't done. Will. This trial isn't about law. It's about silencing me, but truth doesn't disappear when you silence someone. And I'm not here to be quiet, I'm here to chase that truth. Justice Roberts stiffened, his expression tightening with each sentence Will delivered. Chief Justice Roberts, coldly. Mr. Smith, this is a court of law. You are expected to show respect to this institution. You cannot turn this into a performance. This is a serious matter. These are legal proceedings. Will gave a slight nod, but the fire in his eyes remained. Will. Respect is mutual, Your Honor, and respect doesn't grow in the shadow of threats or intimidation. The room fell completely silent. Everyone knew those words were aimed directly at Roberts himself. Outside, live broadcasts were picking up every second, and on Twitter, the hashtag #WillSmithJustice had already started to trend worldwide. As Will stepped down from the stand, he leaned in toward his attorney and whispered, Will, softly. This is just the beginning. We're gonna fight for real justice. Outside, a crowd of supporters cheered and applauded. But inside, Roberts was still trying to regain control of a courtroom that no longer belonged entirely to him. It was the morning of the third day of trial. And this time, the crowd gathered in front of the Los Angeles federal courthouse wasn't just there to catch a glimpse of Will Smith. People had begun to understand something deeper. This wasn't just about a celebrity. This was about millions of unheard voices finally reaching a courtroom. Reporters stretched out microphones, social media outlets were live streaming every second. But inside, the atmosphere was completely different, still, tense, electric. Will sat quietly at the defense table with his attorney, Lena. Across from them stood U.S. Attorney General Reynolds, the man leading some of the country's top federal corruption investigations. Yet most of the public, and even the media, still didn't fully understand why Will Smith was actually on trial. That is, until Lena picked up the microphone. Lena, calm but clear. Your Honor, the prosecution accuses my client of making statements that threaten public order, but there's a crucial detail the court has not yet heard. Mr. Smith has spent the past 3 years operating an independent advisory network, documenting misuse of government contract funds. A soft murmur swept through the courtroom. For the press, this was breaking news. Lena continued, her voice growing stronger. Lena, yes, my client may be an actor, but he's also collected evidence showing how federal project funds have been redirected from public good to private gain. He's not here because he committed a crime, he's here because he exposed one. Chief Justice Roberts furrowed his brow. Even he was hearing this for the first time. Prosecutor Reynolds shot to his feet, visibly angry. Reynolds, Your Honor, these so-called documents are meant to mislead the public. Mr. Smith is inciting public pressure against government institutions, and he's pushing constitutional boundaries in the process. Will slowly sat up straighter. The judge turned to him. Chief Justice Roberts, Mr. Smith, why didn't you bring these documents directly to the court? Why go through the media? Will, firmly, because I submitted those documents to 3 different agencies, and I didn't even receive a response. So yes, I went public, because truth left in the dark begins to rot. All I did was shine a light. The courtroom fell silent again. Roberts closed the file in his hands and exhaled deeply. At that moment, everyone in the room understood. Will Smith wasn't just defending himself in that courtroom. He was standing there, because he chose to expose a truth that had been buried by the very system meant to protect it. As the hearing dragged on, the tension inside the courtroom thickened. Chief Justice Roberts slowly stood from his chair. He closed the case file with deliberate force and fixed his eyes directly on Will. Chief Justice Roberts, cold and firm. Mr. Smith, do you fully understand the consequences of creating this kind of public pressure? Every word you speak, bypassing legal procedures, has the potential to endanger national security. This is not a stage for performance. You are here to answer for your actions. Will felt a lump in his throat. He glanced sideways at Lena. The judge's voice was rising now, and this harsh questioning, echoing even beyond the courtroom walls, was clearly a tactic to break him down. Chief Justice Roberts, pressing harder. Or is this your attempt to undermine public institutions and cast yourself as some kind of hero? Maybe what we're watching right now, live across the country, is just another role for you, Mr. Smith. The room froze. Not a single whisper, not a breath. Will lowered his head for a moment. Then slowly, he straightened his back and leaned into the microphone. His voice trembled at first, but then it strengthened. Will, looking directly into Robert's eyes, Your Honor, a role? Maybe, but this isn't a part I was cast in. I didn't choose it. This role, it came from the letters kids sent me, from the broken schools, from the people begging to be heard. I'm not standing here just as an actor. I'm trying to be their voice. The journalist stopped writing. Some spectators had tears in their eyes, but Roberts didn't budge. His face stayed hard, emotionless. Chief Justice Roberts, lowering his tone. In this court, Mr. Smith, emotions don't matter. Evidence does. Don't try to win sympathy. Justice isn't handed out through fear or applause. Then something shifted in Will's expression. He wasn't scared. He was steady, unshaken. Will, with conviction. I'm not here to win sympathy, Your Honor. I just needed someone to finally speak. And if this is your way of trying to scare me, I'm sorry to disappoint you. I left fear behind, a long time ago, backstage. The atmosphere in the courtroom changed in an instant. For the first time, Chief Justice Roberts looked away. This was the moment everyone saw it clearly. He was trying to break Will Smith down, but Will wasn't afraid. Not anymore. Will Smith didn't walk out of that courtroom alone. A nation walked with him. The final minutes of the trial had arrived. Will Smith had finished his defense. The courtroom was silent. Chief Justice Roberts looked down at the case file one last time. He slowly placed his pen on the desk and removed his glasses. Everyone held their breath. Chief Justice Roberts, reflective tone. Mr. Smith, the charges brought against you were far from ordinary. But today, I realized I cannot simply listen to the law. I must also hear the voice of humanity. A quiet murmur filled the room. Journalists lowered their pens. Cameras zoomed in on Roberts' face. Chief Justice Roberts continuing. From this bench, I'm used to ruling on violations, but today, I heard a citizen's silent scream, and that scream pointed to a much deeper issue. Then, he announced the verdict. Chief Justice Roberts, all charges against Mr. Smith are hereby dropped. Furthermore, his proposals on education reform will be formally submitted to Congress for consideration. There was no applause, but there were tears. Will slowly stood. His attorney Lena looked up at him and gave a gentle smile. Will didn't say a word. He turned and walked quietly toward the exit. Down the hallway, the media swarm was waiting. Microphones, cameras, flashbulbs. But Will just kept walking toward his modest car, parked out front, and just as he reached it, a child's voice called out from behind. Child shouting, Mr. Smith! Will turned. A small boy was running toward him, holding a notebook. His mother followed closely behind. Mother, soft but firm. He watched the news about you this morning, and he wanted to write something. He said he needed you to have it. Will knelt down. He gently placed his hand on the boy's head, smiling. The boy handed him the notebook. Inside, there was just one sentence. Thank you for hearing me. Will looked down. Tears welled up in his eyes. Will, whispering. No, little one, I just gave your voice a place to be heard. You're the real hero. And at that moment, the camera slowly pulled back. The crowd, the courthouse, and one man walking forward with purpose. On screen, final words appeared. Sometimes, the strongest defense is simply telling the truth. And sometimes, when you try to intimidate someone, all you do is prove how brave they really are. That day, Will Smith walked out of a courtroom, but he didn't walk out alone. An entire nation walked with him.